job was professionally done. I think they engaged KPMG.
Right.
And that audit cleaned the register, so to say. The dead voters, for example, were removed. People who double registered using IDs, using passports,
a little over
were
700,000.
detected. We are highly IT savvy right now. And yes, we do not have a problem with those numbers. I think the movement of people, for example, we moved from Muranga to register in Nairobi. I am in Garden Estate.
Yes.
I was a voter in Gatanga. I now vote in Roysambu. Why? Because the polling station is next to my house. I want to elect the MCA for my ward, where I live. I want to elect the MP for my constituency in Nairobi. I want to elect the Nairobi governor because I spend most of my time in Nairobi in the week and go to the village over the weekend. The rest of the family, maybe my grandmother, my aunties and all, who are in the village, we can have this conversation about who they should elect in the village. But when you have people trooping from the city to go and vote in Kangema or in Siaya, it's like, who are they leaving to determine the leadership of the capital city where they spend most of their time?
Yes.
So that movement is justified.
So you're happy with the numbers and the reports?
We are happy with the numbers. Actually, what came out of those numbers is that like 13 million are over 35. 8 are the ones so-called youth below 35.
So they're talking about 40% almost of youth within the 22.1
So it's a 60-40.
Yes. Does that change your tact in terms of approach as a party and as a coalition?
The targeting is clear. You're now dealing with a generation which has lived through the, let's say, 24 years of Moi,
right,
the 10 years of Kibaki, and the 10 years of Uhuru. People who have a history of what happened before we got multipartyism. People who lived under the one-party dictatorship. And people who have this fear that maybe some of our competitors are going to bring back that era of single-party Kanu dictatorship.
Right.
So the voter now is, the demographic is more informed than the young people who have been radicalized. You see, they've never known any other. They've never known other regime.
Look, it almost sounds like you're generalizing the youth bracket, you know, as not being able to think for themselves. Yes, there's a radicalization aspect, but they do have, you know, critical thinking capacity to make decisions for themselves. I mean,
and that is why when people present their manifestos and their programs, the question is, who can you believe in?
Yeah.
Tinga has always given this promise about what he would do if he ever had power. And the competitors have been in government. Musalia was in government in 1989. William Ruto has been in government for the last 30 years, since Kanu YK 92. He has been powerfully in every government since 1992. So people are like, hey, now who can you believe in? Whose promises are believable? If Tinga is promising change to these young people, that is change you can believe in.
But
and
even
it's
Tinga,
in the manifesto.
You know, to be fair, in argument, Raila has been prime minister. Even his running mate has been in the cabinet. So
that was a very contentious arrangement, which was a coalition, a national accord, coming out of a post-election crisis, a post-election violence. It was a forced government where actually even Tinga was complaining about how he was being treated as prime minister.
We find ourselves in the nation as well as in a situation, a coalition that has its roots in a handshake to save, or at least what has been sent out there in the messaging, to bring the country together from the precipice of destruction after the handshake. So it's you know, parallels there.
The first handshake in this country was actually between Uhuru and Ruto. After the post-election violence, it was a peace dividend. And you reach out to the people, you are protagonists, the people who you engage with, the people you fight with. Now, for a better word, it was the Kikuyu versus the Kalenjin.
Yes.
So They reached out, shook hands, went into the team, and won. And you know, in 2013, there was absolutely no violence. Okay, the election was still disputed. The Supreme Court found in favor of the winning side. In 2017, again, now that matter was settled, you had another protagonist to deal with. And I think it's the statesmanship of both the president and the former prime minister. Because the result was without doubt. Actually, that result was about processes and procedures, about transmission, about if they went to count the physical vote, the score was 54 to 44. But the Supreme Court found that there were issues to do with transmission, to do with the law in terms of conducting an election. That's why they nullified.
Okay.
These guys were celebrating the nullification. But then they did not agree to go to the repeat. Why? Because they said if we're going to go to the repeat under the same conditions, the result would be the same. Now, and Tinga has said it himself, the options were either he would have been charged for treason, because there is a constitutionally installed government sworn in by the Chief Justice, or they were going to go to the streets and split Kenya into two. There were people who were saying they were quite happy to dismantle this country. So that wisdom, that reaching out, that agreeing to shake hands and say, look, Kenya is more important than all of us, I think is what has taken us to where we are today. And like I said to you the other day, all the countries around us are in chaos. Ethiopia is in trouble. Sudan is in trouble. South Sudan is in trouble. DRC, you have seen with Rwanda. All around us, Kenya is the only oasis of stability and peace. And trying to bring the Kenyans together, that peace and unity drive arising out of the handshake, I think is something that has helped this country.
Right.
And is going to help it in the long run. I don't know whether some of these young people know what it is when they see women and children trekking to go and become refugees. Kenya takes in refugees. Go to Dadaab, and we're going there in the course of the week. Go to parts of Kenya like Kakuma. How many Kenyans have you had trekking out to go to other countries
We definitely
as
don't want to get there.
refugees?
We definitely don't want to
We
get
don't
there.